Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It's a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. Looks like the sun is going to rise up and it's going to be brutally hot once again. It was very hot yesterday. I expect it'll be very hot today. It'll probably be very hot tomorrow. But for now, it's early morning. It's just after 6. And so I'm going for a walk. Looking forward to enjoying weather before it gets too unpleasant. Well, it's been a couple days since I talked to you last, and it feels like it's time to do another Board Game Espresso triple shot. For those of you new to the podcast, Board Game Espresso Triple Shot is an episode where I do a series of short review segments about games I played for the first time recently. Give you my sense of how they work, what they're like, and try to give you an idea of if it's worth checking them out. Of course, I've only played these once, so these aren't proper reviews. They're just sort of first impressions. Ooh, there's a tiny little bunny. 2 tiny little bunnies. What are you doing, guys? They're running away from me, which isn't surprising. They're tiny little bunnies. It's a tiny little bird, too. Well, let's just jump right into it, shall we? First game I want to talk about is Scooby and the Haunted Mansion. Scooby and the Haunted Mansion is designed by Jay Cormier and Seng Foong Lim, who are a design team that have done a number of interesting games. It was designed for the Op games with art by Rich Hutchinson and Rob Lundy. It's part of a series called the Coded Chronicles, which are essentially an escape room style game, but with a lot more sort of mystery elements or story elements, and then little puzzles that come in envelopes. So the thing that makes this one feel a little different than something like an unlock or an exit is you have these envelopes that have different information that you get at different times. So at the beginning, each person plays one of the characters of the Scooby-Doo story, and you get information related to that character, and then each character is able to find different things in the Scooby-Doo mystery. Now, I assume everybody listening is familiar with Scooby-Doo as a property, but the general idea is Scooby-Doo is a team of interested young people, I think teens or early 20s, who, I think in the cartoon they were high schoolers, or in the more recent ones they were sort of high schoolers moving into college. They were adults in the original show because they're driving around in a van solving mysteries, but they're younger adults. Anyhow, at the beginning you get your envelope of stuff for your character. You get a little sheet that tells people playing the game what's going on with your character, and then as the game goes along, different characters are able to solve different mysteries by using different kinds of verbs. So when you encounter something, you can look at it, you can try to smell it. If you're Scooby, you can investigate it. If you're Velma, you can do something else with it. If you're Fred, I don't remember exactly all the verbs. But so part of it is trying to figure out who can interact with that object in what way. And then you look it up in your book to see what happens. Then as you solve those mysteries, you're going to lay stuff out, and then you eventually get to open up different envelopes and work your way through the story. It was fun, entertaining, not very difficult. It's definitely like a family weight game rather than more complex, but we had a good time with it, and I certainly enjoyed it. So I'd recommend playing that if you get a chance, and if you like sort of mystery or story focused games that have this sort of one play element to them. And Scooby-Doo and the Haunted Mansion is a good one. This is from the Op games. Next up we have the game Sand. Sand was published by Devere Games. The designers are Ariel De Constanzo, and Javier Palaziari, with artists Mado Peña and Ernest Sala. So Sand is sort of like, what would a trading and economics game set on the world of Dune be like? In the game, you play a trader and you're moving things around. It is very much a pick up and deliver game. The gimmick is that you have a worm that is a big, sort of goofy looking cartoon worm that is your main transport, and you can upgrade the worm as the game goes along. And as you upgrade the worm, you can move farther and do more stuff with your actions. You can have up to 4 actions during the game, and you use the actions to do different things. As you upgrade the worm can do more stuff with the given action. Basically, like I said, it's a pick up and deliver game, so you're picking up cubes, moving them to other places. One of the interesting gimmicks is that when you're carrying a cube, you have to use an action to be carrying that cube. So you get less actions during the game. So there's a lot of sort of consideration about efficiency, how quick are you going to move to do a thing, etc., etc. The game has a limited number of rounds. Aside from upgrading your worm, you also are trying to get the different cubes, and as you trade them, those actually help your game as well. So you upgrade your worm by doing the trading that you're going to do anyway, rather than like in Kingsvale and Steam, to upgrade your airship, you actually end up doing something instead of the trading as one of your actions, or you spend money to upgrade. So you're sacrificing your point getting engine in order to upgrade your airship. In Sand, you upgrade your worm as you are getting points. So there is an element of win more, in that if you're doing well, then that's going to accelerate the choice to do the thing that helps you do well. The game does have another set of choices that's interesting. You have 4 helpers that you can get as well. And when you get a helper, you pick which of the 4 helpers you want. And of course, each of them does something different. So getting one of the particular helpers gives you a particular kind of upgrade for your worm or for your process. The look and feel of the game, it's very sort of Arrakis coded, I guess. The whole place is really dusty. They have these little cities that are drawn in there. The art style is cartoony, but not silly, except for the worms look kind of silly. They have very sort of big eyes, and they look like cutesy worms, even though you're riding them. The art style reminds me somewhere in the neighborhood of the Miko, although less angular, if that makes any sense, and not quite as scratchy as Wasteland Delivery Service, but somewhere in that neighborhood as well. So if you draw a continuum from Wasteland Delivery Service to the Traders of the Eastern Sea, or whatever the most recent Shevin Phillips games are, Sand is halfway between that, or is a third triangle, or third point on a triangle with those 2 games. That's how I would describe the art as a person who doesn't know how to describe art. The gameplay was fun. It's definitely the kind of game where if you've played 2 or 3 times in a short window, you would kind of figure out the rhythm of it. Like many pick up and deliver games, it feels like it would be very much the same on the second or third play as it was on the previous one. You would start to learn the efficiency more, but it's all about tactics. It's all about evaluating the board in front of you, keeping track of what your opponents are doing, because the board is tight enough that there's a decent chance that you're going for something, you will inadvertently get in someone else's way, which happened to more than one of us during this gameplay. And that was the sort of driving factor in terms of figuring out who's next, or what you're going to do next. Is the person before you would ruin your plans. They would take the thing you wanted to do. All in all, I found Sand interesting, but a little too complicated for what it was. Like, I don't mind a complicated game, obviously. I love complicated games, but I want the complication to be embedded in a game that's worth that amount of complication. And I feel like the game just had enough sort of overlapping magisteria that it became a little unwieldy in terms of trying to determine how it worked and what's going to happen. So enjoyable, worth checking out if you get a chance. I did like my time with it, but it's sort of middling for me. It wouldn't displace Kingsvale and Steam in my collection, or it's not good enough that I would say, oh, I need to get rid of Kingsvale and Steam and get Sand. I'd happily play either of them, but that's kind of where it is for me. So that's Sand from Devere Games. It does have that small box profile that Devere Games has kind of become known for. So if you're looking to keep the space on your shelf nice and tidy, this Sand might be the game for you. I recently got a chance to return to a game that I played once before, and this is Patrician. Patrician is a game about sort of gaining favor with wealthy folks in Italy. I know that's an unusual kind of theme for Euro games. The game was designed by Michael Schacht, who I think is known for Zularetto or Coloretto best. Although, yeah, Zularetto is probably his best known game, but he's designed a lot of things. The artist is a collective or a group called Design/Main, and it was originally published by Amigo, although I'm not sure who published the edition that I played. I didn't feel like it was Amigo, but what do I know? Mayfair. It was published by Mayfair as well, which would make sense for the game of the era. So it is from 2007, and it is very much a 2007 Euro game. It's got kind of a musty, dusty theme, a kind of musty, dusty look to it. It has relatively simple mechanisms, but really interesting gameplay. So the idea is there's a board full of these different cities. Each city has 2 spots where you can put blocks, and there's a bunch of cards that get dealt around the game. So basically the way it works is you have a couple cards in your hand, you play one, it will tell you to add 1 or maybe 2 blocks to one of the cities and or do something else, like move a block, or certainly you can move a block. Oh, you could take from a different city. There's a couple different minor things, but the whole idea is there's like 6 or 7 different cities on the board. You play a card that lets you put out 1 or 2 blocks in one or both of the tower spots. Then you take the card that is next to that city back into your hand. And the cards that are next to the city are not from that city, they're just around the board. So the big thing is you're trying to get area control of these cities by having the most blocks in the towers of the cities. Each city has a limit to how many pieces can be in that town. So if you have a limit of 7, then you could have 1 tower with 4 blocks and 1 tower with 3, or you could have 1 tower with 6 blocks and 1 tower with 1, or even 7 and none. But once all the blocks allowed are in that city is closed. Whoever plays that last block will take the last card from there, and now no more cards go there. And the way the game is made, you're only putting things in a city when you play a card with that color, so the cards themselves will prevent you from going there again. You also score the city immediately, and basically the person who has dominance in the larger tower gets the better scoring chip. The person who has dominance in the lesser tower gets the lesser scoring chip, and basically you're just trying to get the most scoring chips. You also then, at the end of the game, when you play the cards have the things they're doing in the cities, and they also have the face of one of the nobles of the city on them. At the end of the game, you get points for having sets of multiples of the same noble, and those can be quite valuable as well. Like I said, this is a classic Euro game with a really good system of sort of simple mechanisms that work really well. This is definitely a game I would pick up if I found it cheap. I don't know if I'd pay $10 for it just because my collection's too big to buy a game that I would play occasionally, and I don't know if my wife would like this one or not. But if I found this for $5 or $3, I definitely would get it, just because it's an excellent little play. It takes about 20 minutes once everybody knows what they're doing, and the decisions are simple but interesting. It's tactical and somewhat strategic. The clever part is deciding when you're going to play your card for a city to try to get the card that's on that city. That is the big thing. So let's say you're trying to get control of the purple city. Well, you might have a card for the yellow city. Say there's already a bunch of stuff there. You don't care about the yellow city. But if there's a card with the purple icons on it in the yellow city, then you want to play to the yellow city so you can pick up the card with the purple on it, and you can play purple next turn or whatever. There's also a huge amount of timing because there are cards that let you move blocks back and forth within a city, so you want to be careful about when you play there so that your opponent can't rearrange things in a way that screws with your victory in that city. You also do have the advantage of, like, if you have a card that lets you put 2 blocks in a city, once you have that card, there's no way to lose that card. There's no way to get shut out of putting those 2 blocks in the city, because the cards are exactly set up so that exactly the right number of blocks come out to close the game. I really like that, because there is certainly tension and there's certainly a race, but part of it too is also trying to decide when you're going to make your move and how you're going to get people to do the things you want them to do, and or make a mistake like you want them to make. So that is Patrician by Michael Schach. Definitely worth checking out. I really like that game, actually. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. It's one of my favorite things when you play a game and it gets better over time. All right, the last game I want to talk about today is another game I found at Goodwill. This was Unplayed, which is always fun to find a copy of this. It's a game designed by Joe Barron, and the art is done by Luis Diaz, and it was published by Gray Matters Games. This is the Game of Wolf. So the Game of Wolf is a trivia game with an interesting group dynamic that I think actually works pretty well. It plays 2 to 6 or 3 to 6 players, and it really is the kind of game you want to play with 5 or 6. Playing with fewer than that, I don't really see why you would. No point. So like I said, it's a trivia game, and the way it works is you're going to play 3 rounds, and on each round, each player gets to be the leader 1 time. So you'll get to be the leader 3 times, and over the course of the 3 games, that will determine what you're doing. And that determines your score. The way it works, on your turn, you draw a card. Actually, you just look at the card in the box. You don't pull it out yet. And you look at the category for the card. So it'll be something like, I don't know. The category will be something like, well, one of them was college sports teams. And then you decide, do you want to be a lone wolf or you want to be in a pack? If you're in a pack, you pick someone to join you, and then that person is in your pack, and the other people around the table are in an opposing pack. I feel like it does play 6. I feel like the scoring is set up around, okay. So you pick someone else to be in your pack, or you go alone, and then the other people in the team are in their own pack. And then what happens is a set of questions gets put on the table, and both teams come up with their answers to the questions. If you're the leader, you and your partner have to come up with answers, and then the other people of the team come up with the answers. And then you check which team got more right. If the wolf team, the person who's active player, got more right, then they get points based on, did they have a teammate or did they go alone? If the other team gets more right, they get points. I think, the more I think about it now, the more I'm wondering if that's not the case. If you lone wolf it and you get it wrong, then you lose points. And it's a pretty significant gamble to do that. This is a cute little trivia game, definitely a fun time. I'm certainly going to keep it in my collection for a while. The team versus lone wolf aspect is fun. There's some hubris that goes with choosing to be a lone wolf, and when you fail, then you feel like a doof, but a fun doof. The production design is really nice. It comes with these whiteboard markers and really nice good cards and a fun little box. Good art. My main complaint is that it's a trivia game, so it's very uneven. Like the game we played of it, we had a good time, but we got 3 or 4 sports questions out of the 15 rounds, and one person in the room was a much bigger sports person than everybody else. And so he just dominated on those, and when he would draw one for himself, then he'd lone wolf it and really go to town. So that part wasn't my favorite, but that is inherent in trivia games. Sometimes you just get trivia questions you're not good at. Nonetheless, the game of Wolf was pretty fun. I like the dynamic there. I hope I scored it right. The more I think about it now, the more I'm wondering whether you only score points if it's your turn or you're part of the active team. And the other people are just trying to prevent the scorer or the active player from getting points. That doesn't seem right, but that might be how it works. Otherwise, yeah, worth checking out if you get a chance. That's The Game of Wolf, published in 2019. Well, that's about it for me today. I hope that you're able to get out and enjoy a walk. I hope that you head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know what you think of these games that I played or any other new games you've tried recently. And finally, I would love to know that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.